It's okay, sweetie. We're here together.
Everything's gonna be all right. Let's cut some nice fruit together.
The fluorescent lights of Save Mart hummed their usual monotonous tune as the Morrison family stood frozen in the produce aisle. To any passing shopper, they might have looked like an ordinary family having a moment of indecision over which apples to buy. But the reality was far more devastating. Emma Morrison knelt on the cold supermarket floor, her hand reaching out instinctively toward her 5-year-old son, Oliver, who stood between his father and sister with an expression that broke her heart into 1,000 pieces. His little face, usually so animated and full of mischief, was blank with confusion. The blue peacoat he wore, the one his grandmother had sent for his birthday last month, suddenly seemed too formal, too grown-up for a child who was about to have his world shattered. 7-year-old Sophia stood beside her mother, her pink dress a stark contrast to the somber moment unfolding. Her hand rested protectively on Emma's shoulder, a gesture far too mature for a first grader. She had heard the arguments late at night, understood more than her parents realized. Children always do. David Morrison stood on the other side of their son, his tailored suit and carefully styled hair representing the life he had built and was now preparing to leave behind. His hand gently held Oliver's, and the watch on his wrist caught the harsh supermarket lighting. That watch had been Emma's gift to him on their 10th anniversary, just 6 months ago, back when she still believed in forever. This wasn't supposed to happen here. Not in the grocery store where they had shopped together every Sunday for 8 years. Not surrounded by pyramids of oranges and carefully stacked melons. Not with other families pushing their carts past them, oblivious to the tragedy playing out in aisle 7. The conversation had started that morning over coffee. David had been distant for weeks, and Emma had finally demanded answers. The words came tumbling out. "I'm not happy anymore. I haven't been for a long time. I think we need to separate." 23 minutes later, Emma had numbly gathered the children and driven to the store, needing to maintain some semblance of normalcy to complete the mundane task of grocery shopping while her mind reeled. David had followed in his own car, unable to let them go without explaining to the children, unable to be the father who disappeared without a goodbye. "Why is Daddy leaving?" Oliver had asked in the parking lot, his small voice cutting through the autumn air. David had suggested they talk inside, somewhere warm, somewhere that felt safe. But there was no safe place for this conversation. Emma looked at her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, and saw a stranger. When had the man she loved transformed into this person she no longer recognized? She thought of their wedding day, of dancing under string lights while their friends and family celebrated around them. She thought of the night Sophia was born, how David had cried tears of joy and promised to be the best father in the world. She thought of moving into their first house, of painting the nursery yellow because they hadn't wanted to know Oliver's gender before he was born. Where had those people gone? "Mummy's crying," Sophia whispered, her own eyes filling with tears. Emma hadn't realized the tears had started falling. She quickly wiped them away, trying to be strong for her children, but they kept coming. David cleared his throat. "Mommy and Daddy need to talk to you both about something very important. You know how we love you both more than anything in the whole world, right?" Oliver nodded slowly, his eyes darting between his parents. Sophia remained silent, her hand tightening on her mother's shoulder. "Sometimes," David continued, his voice cracking, "grown-ups realize that they're better as friends than as husband and wife. It doesn't mean we don't care about each other. It just means that Daddy is going to live in a different house." "Why?" Oliver asked, his lower lip beginning to tremble. "Did we do something bad?" Emma's heart shattered completely. She reached out and pulled both children close, not caring that they were creating a scene in the middle of the grocery store. "No, baby. No, no, no. This has nothing to do with you or Sophia. You are both perfect. This is about Mommy and Daddy, not about you." But that wasn't entirely true, was it? Emma thought about the night she had been too exhausted from work and parenting to notice David's growing distance. She thought about the soccer games and ballet recitals that had replaced date nights. She thought about how they had stopped being lovers and partners and had become just roommates who happened to share children and a mortgage. Maybe they were both to blame. Maybe no one was to blame. Maybe this was just what happened when two people grew in different directions, no matter how much they had once loved each other. "I want you to stay," Sophia said suddenly, her voice fierce and angry as she looked at her father. "You're supposed to stay. That's what daddies do." David's composure finally cracked. Tears filled his eyes as he knelt down beside his daughter. "I'm not going far, sweetheart. I'll still see you all the time. We'll have special weekends together, and I'll still help with your homework and come to your dance shows. I promise." "Promises don't mean anything," Sophia shot back with wisdom beyond her years. Emma recognized her own pain reflected in her daughter's eyes, and it was almost too much to bear. An elderly woman pushed her cart past them, then paused. She looked at the family with such profound sadness that Emma wondered what story she saw, what memories this scene evoked. The woman reached out and gently touched Emma's arm, saying nothing, before continuing down the aisle. That simple gesture of human kindness made Emma cry harder. Oliver suddenly broke free and ran a few steps away, stopping in front of a display of pumpkins. It was late October, and the store was decorated for Halloween and Thanksgiving. Just yesterday, they had been planning their family costume. The kids wanted to be superheroes, with Emma and David as the villains they would defeat. Now, that costume hung in bags in the hallway at home, rendered meaningless. David went to Oliver, kneeling beside him among the pumpkins. Emma watched as her husband, her soon-to-be ex-husband, wrapped their son in his arms. She couldn't hear what he was saying, but she saw Oliver's small body shaking with sobs, and she had to look away. Sophia pressed closer to her mother. "Are you going to be okay, Mommy?" she asked softly. The question was so unexpected, so mature, that Emma almost laughed through her tears. Her 7-year-old daughter was comforting her. What kind of mother allowed that to happen? "I will be," Emma answered, "because that's what mothers say. Because she had no choice but to be okay. Because Sophia and Oliver needed her to hold it together, even when everything was falling apart. We'll all be okay. It's going to be different, but we'll get through this together." She didn't know if she believed those words, but she said them anyway. She would say them every day if she had to, until they became true, or until the children believed them, at least. David returned with Oliver, who immediately reached for Emma. She scooped him up, breathing in the scent of his shampoo, the sweetness of his skin. He was getting so big now, almost too heavy to hold comfortably, but she would hold him as long as he needed. "I don't understand," Oliver mumbled against her shoulder. "Why can't we all just be happy together? It was the question Emma had been asking herself for months, maybe years. Why couldn't they make it work? Other couples overcame difficulties. Other families stayed together through hard times. What made them different? What made them failures? Sometimes love changes. Buddy, David said, standing awkwardly beside them. It doesn't disappear, but it becomes a different kind of love. Mommy and I will always care about each other because we have you and Sophia. You two are the best things we ever made together. Emma looked up at him then, really looked at him, and saw that he was suffering too. This wasn't easy for him either. He wasn't some villain who was abandoning his family without a second thought. He was a man who had tried to make himself happy in a life that no longer fit, and had finally admitted defeat. That didn't make it hurt any less, but it made it marginally more bearable. A store employee approached hesitantly. "Excuse me, is everything okay? Can I help with anything?" Emma shook her head, managing a weak smile. "We're fine, thank you. Just a family moment." The young man nodded and hurried away, clearly uncomfortable. Emma realized they couldn't stay here forever, frozen in this aisle while life continued around them. They had to move forward. They had to figure out how to navigate this new reality. "We should finish shopping," she said, setting Oliver down but keeping his hand in hers. "We still need to eat, right? Life goes on." The words sounded hollow even to her own ears, but they were true. Bills would still need to be paid. Lunches would still need to be packed. Homework would still need to be checked. The mundane details of existence continued regardless of personal tragedy. They walked through the store together one last time as a complete family, though none of them could focus on actually shopping. Emma grabbed items randomly, bread, milk, bananas, while David pushed the cart. The children stayed close, unusually quiet, sensing that this moment marked a before and after in their lives. At the checkout, David reached for his wallet, but Emma stopped him. "I've got it," she said. It felt important somehow, this small declaration of independence. This was her cart, her groceries, her life moving forward. In the parking lot, they stood beside their separate cars. The autumn wind picked up, sending leaves skittering across the asphalt. Emma helped buckle the children into her minivan while David loaded the groceries. "I'll call later," David said, lingering by the driver's side door, to talk about logistics, custody arrangements, splitting belongings, all of that. Emma nodded, unable to speak. The reality of actually dividing up their life, their home, their belongings, their time with their children, was overwhelming. Sophia rolled down her window. "Are you coming home?" she asked her father. David's face contorted with pain. "Not tonight, sweetheart. I'm going to stay with Uncle Mark for a while. But I'll see you very soon, okay?" "Okay," she whispered, but Emma could hear the heartbreak in that single word. Oliver pressed his face against the car window, leaving small handprints on the glass. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, buddy. More than you'll ever know." Emma started the engine, needing to leave before she completely fell apart. As she pulled out of the parking lot, she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw David standing alone beside his car, watching them drive away. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of what he had set in motion. The drive home took 7 minutes. Emma had made this trip hundreds of times, but today the familiar streets seemed foreign. Everything looked the same: the coffee shop on the corner, the park where they had picnicked last summer, the elementary school where Sophia attended 2nd grade, but nothing would ever be the same again. When they pulled into the driveway of their house, Emma sat for a moment, gathering strength. Through the windows, she could see the life they had built together. The curtains she had picked out, the jack-o'-lantern they had carved as a family last weekend, the basketball hoop where David played with Oliver on weekends. "Is Daddy really not coming home?" Oliver asked from the back seat. Emma turned to look at her children. These beautiful, innocent souls who didn't deserve any of this. "Not tonight, baby. But he's still your daddy, and he still loves you so much. That will never change." She prayed that was true. She prayed that David would keep his promises, that he would remain present in their children's lives, that they could somehow figure out how to co-parent successfully. But she was terrified. Terrified of raising them alone, of the holidays and birthdays that would now be divided, of explaining to friends and family that their marriage had ended. They unloaded the groceries together, the three of them moving through the house that suddenly felt too big and too empty. Emma put things away mechanically, her mind numb. Sophia helped without being asked, while Oliver sat at the kitchen table, unusually subdued. That night, after tucking the children into bed and reassuring them countless times that everything would be okay, Emma finally allowed herself to truly fall apart. She sat on the bedroom floor, their bedroom, soon to be just her bedroom, and sobbed until she had no tears left. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. "I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better than this." Maybe she did. Maybe they both did. Maybe the children deserved parents who could make it work. But regrets and maybes wouldn't change anything. This was their reality now. Emma pulled herself together, washed her face, and checked on the children one more time. They were both asleep. Oliver clutching the stuffed bear David had given him, Sophia curled up with the blanket Emma's mother had made when she was born. They would survive this. Children were resilient. Everyone said so. But as Emma finally climbed into bed alone that night, she wondered about the cost of that resilience. What scars would this leave? What trust issues would it create? How would it shape their future relationships? The Save Mart receipt sat on her nightstand, a mundane artifact of an extraordinary day. She picked it up, looking at the timestamp. 3:47 p.m., October 27th. The day everything changed. The day her family fractured in the produce aisle of a grocery store, surrounded by oranges and melons and the oblivious shoppers who had no idea they were witnessing a tragedy. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Lawyers and paperwork and difficult conversations. But tonight, Emma allowed herself to grieve for the life she had imagined, the future that would never be, and the family photo that would forever be incomplete. Outside, the October wind continued to blow, carrying away the last leaves of autumn. Inside, three hearts worked to make sense of a loss that couldn't be explained, only endured. And somewhere across town, in his brother's spare room, David Morrison stared at a photo on his phone of his family, his former family, and wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. But the words had been spoken. The damage was done. And there was no going back to before, no matter how much any of them wished they could. The story of the Morrison family had reached its turning point, and all they could do now was try to write a new chapter from the broken pieces of the old one.